Before we get started with today's interview, just a quick reminder, click the thumbs up, make sure you subscribe, and ding the bell so that you don't miss any of the great interviews that we have coming up. Now, on to today's interview. Welcome back, everybody. Today, my special guest is Dr. Christopher Fisher. His piece on the new National Federation of Music Clubs list is Sunrise Over the Yangtze. Welcome, Christopher.
Thank you, Sam. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you so much for taking time to talk to us today. So this piece is just beautiful and wonderful. It has this really wide range students get to explore at the piano keyboard. It has some wonderful left-hand arpeggios. It has some great parallel fourths. Talk to us about Sunrise Over the Yangtze.
Yeah, this is one of my most beloved pieces that I've had the pleasure of composing. I've taught a lot of students over the years from Asia, particularly many pre-college students from China or Chinese heritage. And so in many ways, this piece was composed as a sort of gift to those students. I've been fascinated for many, many years with traditional Chinese instruments, their sounds. And so these appear to some degree in this piece. For example, if you look at the beginning of the piece, it begins with sort of a Chinese gong and cymbal combination, the very lowest ranges and highest ranges of the instrument. So students get to work on this diminuendo and really pacing contextually the ritardando that sets up this introductory theme. So we have these gongs and bells in the highest and lowest registers of the instrument, and then this lyrical B theme. When I was writing this theme. Really, what I had in mind was the Chinese erhu, the stringed instrument, playing that lyrical theme. And so, really, I think for me, it was the inspiration was not only kind of a gift to my students, but also how could I try to capture in some way these incredible Chinese traditional instruments in this piece. As you mentioned, there is that flowing left-hand accompaniment figure in the left hand. What I was trying to do as I wrote that was, again, create a pattern that would be sort of repetitive. Again, the idea that a repetitive pattern is accessible to most students, right? If I've learned the pattern once, it's going to reappear many times. I can focus on really shaping this beautiful melody in the right hand. Now, the challenge, however, in trying to create that flowing river sound in that left-hand accompaniment, of course, is with many students, we often get this, right? So if they're, that sense of that crossover, oftentimes we'll see an accent there, right? So what I have students do is feel dropping into the initial key and then really releasing out as they go higher. So the idea, what I often will tell students, rather than thinking that you're going to play the C, you're simply going to touch it, right? Or just gently caress the C, which really helps us prevent an unwanted accent there in the left hand. As you mentioned, these fourths at the very beginning of the piece really create this sense of space. The interval of the fourth creates a sense of spacious quality. And then right off the bat, too, we have these again, registral shifts, right? Which can be challenging for young students. As I mentioned previously in our conversations, I don't want to limit myself or my students because they're totally capable of much more than we give them credit for. And so here I thought, well, why not give them the chance to move about the keyboard? What we know is shifting register is hard, and then continuing from there is difficult. So there are lots of opportunities for us to practice in these instances, getting back. So what I will do is have the students play and make that a practice group. So when we put that together, lots of really good practice strategies in terms of registral shifts and being at the new position on time can be taught in this piece. What I will often do also in instances like this for students is do what I call overloading. It's actually a technique that Steph Curry does, and the great basketball player. This idea of making something more difficult as you're practicing it, so that when you encounter it in the repertoire or in the game, as Steph Curry does, it's a piece of cake, right? So what we might do here is force the student to rush as quickly as they can to the next position. Get there as soon as you can. So when you actually put it in time, that's easy, right? So this idea of overloading can come to play in this piece as well. But yeah, lots of different sort of soundscapes in this piece. Really a joy to compose, and I hope students really appreciate playing it.
It was a lot of fun when I was sight reading it. So talk to us a little bit about some strategies students can use to help them balance out the left-hand accompaniment from that beautiful singing melody in the B section.
In terms of balancing, one of my favorite strategies to do with students is to have them exaggerate to the extreme, right? And so what I will often have a student do is to play that melody as ugly loud as they possibly can, which some teachers would say, why would you ever do that, right? But really understanding that a young student feeling that differentiation between a loud volume in one hand and a soft volume, and the control that it takes to develop that is actually quite difficult and sophisticated, right? So having them play with a really robust forte sound, and then as they're doing that, simply ghosting the other hand, I think can be really, really helpful. What we often see when we ask students to play one hand loud and the other hand soft, when they try to merge the hands together, the left hand becomes the same volume as the right hand, right? So we have to exaggerate. It's always best, I found, to exaggerate and then refine, than start too close to the end, which never really gets us where we want to go. So for me, I like to have them really exaggerate. So I will tell them, play that melody fortissimo, right? And your left hand simply touch the surface of the keys. We'll do that for several repetitions. And even as they're playing it forte, we're still thinking, how can we shape this line? So I'm keeping the arm really relaxed, tonal production coming from the arm, not just forcing it with the finger. And with each repetition, what we'll do is gradually refine that so we come back to that beautiful balance. I think balancing the hands is, as we know from experience, it's one of the biggest challenges that our students encounter. But I think with a very systematic approach, we can not only make it fun, but also very effective for our students in the process of learning.
That is excellent advice. What challenges, if any, did you face as you were composing Sunrise Over the Yangtze?
This was a piece, again, that kind of composed itself. I set out, I had the theme in mind, this lyrical theme in mind, really was the sort of impetus for this piece. And then I knew that I wanted to infuse the piece with some of these Chinese instruments, so I thought, what better way to begin than with this introduction?
Is there anything else you'd like to tell us about Sunrise Over the Yangtze?
Yeah, I love learning about cultures. I think as a member of humanity, right, we really are called to try to understand our neighbor, right? And so when I'm teaching music that attempts to represent through sound cultures or places, I love to show illustrations or images of these places. So what I will often do when I'm teaching this piece is to show images of the Yangtze River in China, a place that I would love to visit someday. I haven't been there yet, and I hope to do that someday. But I think it's very inspiring for students to see these places that have inspired the music that they're playing. I also love to show them videos of some of these traditional Chinese instruments that have found their way into this piece, just to broaden their perspective of cultures and other sounds that really are quite foreign to us and for many of our students here in this country.
My guest today has been Dr. Christopher Fisher. His piece on the new National Federation of Music Clubs list is Sunrise Over the Yangtze. You can find it at pianosafari.com. We'll make sure we link it in the description. Thank you so much for being here today, Christopher.
Thank you, Sam. It's been a pleasure.